You will never be wealthy if you think like an employee. Listen carefully. Billionaires don't work for money. They make money work for them. And that's not motivation. That's a system. While you're counting hours, they're counting leverage. While you're asking for raises, they're acquiring assets. This audiobook will dismantle every lie you've been told about wealth and rebuild your mind with the exact thought patterns that separate the ultra-rich from everyone else. If you're ready to think like a billionaire, keep listening. If not, this isn't for you. Chapter 1. Money is a game you don't know you're playing. Let me tell you something that will either wake you up or make you angry. You're playing a game you don't even know exists, and that's exactly why you're losing. Money is a game. It has rules, it has strategies, it has winners and losers. And right now, you're sitting on the sidelines wondering why everyone else seems to be winning while you're stuck in the same financial position year after year. Here's the truth. Billionaires aren't smarter than you. They're not more talented. They didn't work harder than the single mother working 3 jobs or the construction worker putting in 12-hour days. What they have is something you don't. They understand the rules of the game. You've been lied to. You've been told that if you work hard, show up on time, and do what you're told, you'll be rewarded. That's not how the game works. That's how you stay exactly where you are. Most people treat money as survival. They wake up, go to work, collect the paycheck, pay bills, and repeat. That's not playing the game. That's being played by it. You're a piece on someone else's board, and they're moving you wherever they want. Billionaires treat money differently. They see it as a game with rules, strategies, and winning conditions. They study the mechanics. They learn the patterns. They understand leverage, compounding, and strategic risk. And most importantly, they refuse to play by the rules designed for employees. You're not broke because you don't work hard. Let me say that again. You're not broke because you don't work hard. You're broke because you don't know the rules. You're trading time for dollars in a game that rewards people who multiply dollars with systems. Think about it. Right now, someone is making money while they sleep. Right now, someone is earning from investments they made 5 years ago. Right now, someone is collecting royalties, dividends, and passive income streams that require zero active effort. That's not luck. That's understanding the game. The game rewards those who understand leverage. What's leverage? It's using something small to move something big. It's using $100,000 of someone else's money to buy a $500,000 property. It's hiring 10 people to do the work you used to do alone. It's creating one product that sells to 10,000 customers instead of serving one customer at a time. You don't have leverage because you're still thinking like an employee. Employees trade 1 hour for 1 paycheck. Players trade 1 move for exponential returns. The game rewards those who understand compounding. Warren Buffett didn't become a billionaire by working harder than you. He understood that money makes money. He understood that if you invest $10,000 today and let it grow at 10% annually, in 30 years, you have $174,000. That's not magic, that's the game. But you can't play that game if you're spending everything you earn. You can't compound what you don't have, and you can't build wealth if you're trapped in the paycheck-to-paycheck cycle that the game is designed to keep you in. The game rewards strategic risk. Notice I said strategic, not reckless. Billionaires take calculated risks because they've studied the probabilities. They know that doing nothing is the biggest risk of all. While you're afraid to start a business because it might fail, they've already failed 3 times and are building their 4th empire. You see, the difference isn't effort. The factory worker putting in 60-hour weeks is working harder than most CEOs. The nurse doing double shifts is exhausted. The teacher grading papers at midnight is dedicated. But none of them are winning the game because effort alone doesn't win. Understanding the rules wins. Here's what they don't teach you. The game has different levels. Level 1 is trading time for money. That's where most people live their entire lives. Level 2 is trading money for more money. That's investing. Level 3 is trading other people's time and money for exponential returns. That's building businesses and systems. You're stuck on level 1 wondering why you can't beat people playing on level 3. That's the game. Warren Buffett is the perfect example. He didn't become one of the richest people on earth by working construction. He didn't outwork anyone. He understood the game of compounding interest and asset acquisition. While others were saving pennies in checking accounts, he was buying entire companies. While others were afraid of the stock market, he was studying it like a textbook. The difference isn't effort, it's understanding the playing field and refusing to play by employee rules. You want to know why you feel like you're running in place financially? Because you're playing checkers while billionaires are playing chess. You're focused on your next move, they're thinking 10 moves ahead. You're protecting your king, they're building an army. Money is a game. Learn the rules or stay poor. That's not motivation, that's reality. You can be offended by it or you can accept it and start learning. The rules are simple once you see them. Rule 1. Time is your most limited resource. Stop selling it by the hour. Rule 2. Money should make money. Stop letting it sit idle. Rule 3. Other people's resources can accelerate your growth. Stop trying to do everything alone. Rule 4. Systems beat effort every single time. Stop glorifying exhaustion. But here's the problem. You've been conditioned to reject these rules. You've been taught that debt is bad, that risk is dangerous, that entrepreneurship is for other people. You've been programmed for safety, and safety guarantees you'll never win the game. Poverty often is a knowledge problem, not a work ethic problem. Read that again. You're not poor because you're lazy. You're poor because you were never taught how wealth actually works. You were taught to get good grades, get a good job, and work hard. That's the script for mediocrity, not millions. Until you see wealth as a strategic game requiring study and execution, you remain a spectator watching others win. You'll watch billionaires get richer while you get older. You'll see opportunities pass by because you didn't recognize them as moves in the game. The game doesn't care about your intentions. It doesn't care that you're a good person or that you deserve better. It rewards those who understand the mechanics and execute the strategy, period. So here's your choice. Keep playing by rules you never agreed to, or learn the actual game and start playing to win. Keep trading hours for dollars, or start building systems that trade once and profit forever. Keep surviving, or start strategizing. Money is a game. You're already in it whether you know it or not. The question is, are you going to keep losing, or are you finally going to learn how to play? That's the key. Understanding that wealth isn't about working harder, it's about playing smarter. And you can't play smarter until you admit you've been playing the wrong game entirely. You've taken the first step. You now know the game exists. But knowing the game exists isn't enough. You need to learn every rule, study every strategy, and commit to playing at a level you've never played before. You've understood that money is a game. Now let's talk about the invisible force that's been sabotaging your ability to win it.
Chapter 2. Scarcity thinking is your silent assassin. There's a voice in your head right now. It's quiet, but it's always there. It tells you there's not enough money, not enough opportunity, not enough time, not enough for everyone to win. That voice is killing your future. Scarcity thinking is your silent assassin. It operates in the background of your mind, making every decision for you. And every decision it makes keeps you exactly where you are, broke, afraid, and small. Here's what you need to understand. The poor believe money is scarce. The rich know opportunity is infinite. That's not philosophy. That's the fundamental difference between wealth and poverty. Your brain has been programmed. From childhood, you've been taught to hoard, to save defensively, to fear loss. You've been conditioned to believe that if someone else wins, you lose. That if someone else gets rich, there's less for you. That's the psychology of poverty, and it's running your life right now. Scarcity thinking shows up everywhere. You see a successful person and immediately think, they got lucky. You see someone launch a business and think, the market is already saturated. You see an opportunity and think, someone else will probably get it. Every single one of those thoughts is scarcity speaking. And scarcity is a liar. Billionaires operate from abundance. They don't see a fixed pie where everyone fights for a slice. They see unlimited ways to create value. And that mindset alone opens doors you don't even know exist. While you're worried about the competition, they're creating new markets. While you're protecting what little you have, they're risking intelligently for exponential returns. Let me give you a real example. Elon Musk was $100 million in debt during Tesla's early years. Read that again, $100 million in debt. Most people would have filed bankruptcy. Most people would have quit, retreated, played it safe. But Musk kept investing in his vision because he didn't operate from scarcity. He saw abundance. He saw the future of transportation. He saw a market worth trillions, not the debt worth millions. That's not recklessness, that's abundance thinking. He wasn't protecting pennies, he was building an empire. You would have quit. Be honest with yourself. At $1 million in debt, you would have stopped. At $10 million, you would have been paralyzed. That's scarcity. That's the voice telling you to protect what you have instead of building what you could have. Scarcity thinking tells you to save. Abundance thinking tells you to invest. Scarcity thinking tells you to play defense. Abundance thinking tells you to play offense. Scarcity thinking asks, what if I lose? Abundance thinking asks, what if I win? Here's the brutal truth. If you believe there's not enough, you'll always fight for scraps. You'll underprice your services because you're afraid no one will pay. You'll stay in a job you hate because you're afraid you won't find another. You'll watch opportunities pass because you're afraid of what you might lose instead of excited about what you might gain. Scarcity is a decision. Nobody is born thinking this way. You learned it. You absorbed it from broke family members, from frightened parents, from a society that worships safety over success. And what you learned, you can unlearn. Billionaires reject scarcity entirely. They don't acknowledge it. They don't entertain it. When someone tells them something is impossible, they hear, nobody has figured it out yet. When someone tells them the market is saturated, they hear, there's room for innovation. When someone tells them they'll fail, they hear, you'll learn something valuable. That's abundance. That's seeing possibility where others see limits. You need to understand something critical. Your financial reality is a direct reflection of your mental model. If you think small, you'll earn small. If you think there's not enough, you'll never have enough. If you think you need to fight for every dollar, you'll spend your life fighting instead of building. Scarcity makes you cheap. Not frugal, cheap. You won't invest in yourself because it's too expensive. You won't hire help because you can do it yourself. You won't take the course, hire the coach, buy the tool, or make the move because scarcity tells you to hold tight to what you have. Meanwhile, abundance thinkers are spending $50,000 on masterminds, $10,000 on courses, $100,000 on building teams. Not because they're reckless, but because they see investment as multiplication, not subtraction. They know that strategic spending accelerates growth. You're still thinking like a consumer. Billionaires think like investors. Every dollar they spend is expected to return 5, 10, or 100. Every hire is leverage. Every tool is efficiency. Every investment is compounding. That's abundance. Scarcity makes you jealous. You see someone succeed and feel threatened. You see someone launch what you were thinking about and feel defeated. You see someone get the promotion, the funding, the opportunity, and you feel like you lost something. That's scarcity, believing success is finite. Abundance makes you inspired. You see someone succeed and think, if they can do it, so can I. You see someone build wealth and study their strategy instead of resenting their results. You see opportunity everywhere because you're not focused on what you might lose, you're focused on what you can create. Let me tell you something that might hurt. Scarcity thinking is why you're still reading this instead of living it. You're consuming information instead of executing because scarcity tells you that you need just one more piece of knowledge before you're ready. You need one more book, one more video, one more sign. That's scarcity protecting you from risk by convincing you that you're not ready yet. You are ready. You've been ready. Scarcity is lying to you. Billionaires don't wait until conditions are perfect. They don't wait until they have all the answers. They move with incomplete information because they operate from abundance. They know that action creates clarity and opportunity multiplies with momentum. Scarcity is your silent assassin because you don't even realize it's there. It whispers so quietly that you think its voice is your own wisdom. It disguises itself as caution, as prudence, as being realistic. But it's not wisdom, it's fear. And fear, dressed up as logic, is still just fear. Here's how you kill scarcity. You starve it. You stop feeding it with defensive decisions. You stop listening to broke people's advice. You stop consuming content that reinforces limitation. You stop saying, "I can't afford it," and start asking, "How can I afford it?" That question alone is abundance. "I can't afford it" closes the door. "How can I afford it" opens 1,000 doors. The first statement is scarcity, accepting defeat. The second statement is abundance, solving problems. Scarcity is a lie. Say it out loud. Scarcity is a lie. There is not a fixed amount of money in the world. There is not a limited number of opportunities. There is not a cap on how much wealth you can create. The only cap is the one you've placed on yourself by believing in scarcity. Abundance is a decision. It's a decision to see possibility. It's a decision to invest instead of hoard. It's a decision to create instead of consume. It's a decision to think bigger than your current circumstances. You want to know why billionaires keep getting richer? Because they decided scarcity doesn't apply to them. They don't believe in limits. They don't accept ceilings. They don't think that's impossible. They think, how do I make that possible? That's the game. That's the difference. Right now, you have a choice. You can keep operating from scarcity, protecting, hoarding, fearing, shrinking, or you can adopt abundance, creating, investing, risking, expanding. One keeps you exactly where you are. The other transforms everything. Scarcity is a lie. Abundance is a decision. And that decision starts right now, with this chapter, with this moment. Stop thinking like there's not enough. Start creating like the world is full of infinite possibility. Because it is. You've identified the assassin. You've exposed scarcity for what it really is. A mental prison you've been living in without realizing it. Now it's time to talk about the most important shift you'll ever make in your financial life.
Chapter 3. Stop selling time. Start selling systems. You have exactly 24 hours in a day. So does every billionaire. So does every broke person. The difference isn't the time. It's what they do with it. And right now, you're doing it wrong. Trading hours for dollars is the slowest path to wealth. It's the path most people take, and it's exactly why most people never escape financial mediocrity. You wake up, go to work, trade 8 hours of your life for a paycheck, and repeat. That's not building wealth. That's surviving. Time is your only non-renewable resource. You can make more money. You can find more opportunities. You can start over after failure. But you cannot make more time. Once an hour is gone, it's gone forever. And if you're selling that hour for $20, $50, or even $200, you're capped by a ceiling you'll never break through. Let me be clear. If your income stops when you stop working, you're not building wealth. You're surviving. And survival is not the same as success.
Chapter 4. Debt is a weapon, not a trap. You've been taught to fear debt. Your parents feared it. Your teachers warned against it. Society treats it like a disease you must avoid at all costs. And that fear is exactly why you'll never be wealthy. Poor people fear debt. Rich people weaponize it. That's not a metaphor. That's a fundamental difference in how wealth is built. Let me be clear from the start. I'm not telling you to go into reckless debt. I'm not telling you to max out credit cards on things you don't need. I'm telling you that your relationship with debt determines your wealth trajectory. And right now, your relationship is based on fear, not understanding. Debt is a tool. Like any tool, it can build or destroy depending on how you use it. A hammer can build a house or break a window. The hammer isn't good or bad, the user's skill determines the outcome. Debt works the same way. Here's what you need to understand. There are two types of debt. Bad debt buys liabilities, cars, clothes, vacations, consumption, things that lose value the moment you purchase them, things that don't generate income, things that make you poorer. Good debt buys assets, real estate, businesses, income-generating investments, things that appreciate in value, things that produce cash flow, things that make you wealthier. Poor people use debt for liabilities. Rich people use debt for assets. It's that simple. You finance a $40,000 car that depreciates to $25,000 the moment you drive it off the lot. That's bad debt. You're paying interest on something that's losing value. You're getting poorer with every payment. A billionaire finances a $10 million apartment building with a $2 million down payment and $8 million in bank loans. The building generates $80,000 monthly in rent. The mortgage cost $50,000 monthly. That's $30,000 profit every single month on a property they only put $2 million into. That's good debt. That's leverage. That's wealth. You see the difference? One person is paying to look successful. The other person is using other people's money to become actually successful. Billionaires use other people's money to multiply their returns. They use banks, investors, partners, and leverage because they understand that strategic debt accelerates wealth. They understand that if you can borrow at 5% and invest at 15%, you're making 10% on money that isn't even yours. That's the game. That's the weapon. Let me give you a real example. Real estate moguls don't buy properties with cash, even when they can afford to. They put down 20% and finance 80% because they want to control 5 properties instead of 1. If each property appreciates 10%, they've made 50% returns on their actual capital because they used leverage. Meanwhile, you're saving every penny to buy something outright because you're terrified of owing anyone anything. You're proud of having no debt, and that pride is keeping you poor. Here's the brutal truth. Avoiding all debt means you're limited by the cash you currently have. And if you're reading this, that's probably not much. Leverage means you can control assets worth far more than your current capital. It means you can operate at a scale you couldn't reach for decades if you waited to save enough cash. Think about it. If you have $100,000 and you invest it all into one property, you own one property. If you use that $100,000 as down payments on 5 properties using bank loans, you own 5 properties. When those properties appreciate, you've multiplied your returns by 5. When those properties generate rental income, you're earning from 5 sources instead of 1. That's leverage. That's how wealth is built quickly instead of slowly. But you're not doing this because you're afraid. You're afraid the bank will take everything. You're afraid you'll lose money. You're afraid of risk. And that fear guarantees you'll never be rich.
Let me tell you something about billionaires. They respect debt, but they don't fear it. They study it. They understand terms, interest rates, payment structures, tax implications. They master debt before they use it, and once they master it, they use it aggressively. You don't master debt, you avoid it. And avoidance is not a strategy. It's fear disguised as wisdom. Here's another example. Business owners use debt to scale. They take out loans to hire employees, buy equipment, expand locations, and increase inventory. They use that debt to generate more revenue than the debt costs them. A $500,000 loan at 7% interest costs $35,000 annually. If that loan helps them generate an additional $200,000 in profit, they've made $165,000 they wouldn't have made otherwise. You can't see that because you're focused on the $35,000 cost, not the $200,000 opportunity. That's poverty thinking. That's why you're stuck. Debt is a tool. Master it or fear it forever. Those are your only two options. Now let's talk about why banks love lending to rich people and hate lending to poor people. It's not personal, it's risk assessment. Rich people have assets, cash flow, and financial literacy. They understand how to service debt and generate returns. Poor people have liabilities, inconsistent income, and financial ignorance. They borrow for consumption, not production. Banks aren't evil for this. They're logical. They lend to people who understand the tool, not people who will hurt themselves with it. You need to become the person banks want to lend to. You need to build credit. You need to demonstrate financial responsibility. You need to show you understand the difference between good debt and bad debt. Because once you have access to capital, you have access to acceleration. Most people will never be wealthy because they're waiting to afford everything with cash. By the time they save enough, the opportunity is gone. The market has shifted, or they're too old to capitalize on it. Wealth doesn't wait for you to be comfortable. Wealth rewards those who move strategically with leverage. Let me address the elephant in the room. But what if I fail? What if the investment doesn't work and I'm stuck with debt I can't repay? Valid concern. Here's the answer. That's why you start small, learn the game, and scale gradually. You don't finance a $10 million building as your first move. You finance a $200,000 duplex. You learn how debt works. You learn how cash flow works. You learn how to manage risk. Then you scale. Billionaires didn't start with massive debt. They started with small, calculated risks, learned from them, and increased their capacity for leverage over time. They built financial literacy and emotional resilience. They failed on small deals before they succeeded on big ones. You're not willing to fail small, so you'll never win big. You're so afraid of losing $10,000 that you'll never make $1 million. That's the trap. Fear of debt keeps you small. Mastery of debt makes you dangerous. Here's what most people don't understand. Inflation makes debt cheaper over time. If you borrow $500,000 today at a fixed interest rate, that $500,000 becomes worth less every year due to inflation. In 20 years, you're paying back money that's worth significantly less than when you borrowed it, but the asset you bought it with has appreciated significantly. The wealthy understand this. They use inflation to their advantage. You're fighting against it because you're hoarding cash that loses value instead of using debt that loses weight. This is why billionaires love real estate debt. They lock in 30-year mortgages at low rates, and over time, inflation erodes the real cost of that debt, while the property value increases. They're literally being paid to borrow money when you account for appreciation and inflation. You can't comprehend this because you're still thinking like a consumer, not an investor. Debt is not your enemy. Financial ignorance is your enemy. Reckless consumption is your enemy. Fear is your enemy. Debt is just a tool waiting to be used correctly. Right now, someone is using debt to buy a business that will make them a millionaire. Right now, someone is leveraging a loan to scale their operations and dominate their market. Right now, someone is financing properties that will generate passive income for decades. And you're sitting there with zero debt, proud of owing nothing, while owing yourself the wealth you could have built. Master debt or fear it forever. Those are your options. One keeps you safe and poor, the other makes you uncomfortable and wealthy. The choice is yours, but understand this. Every day you avoid learning how debt works is another day someone else is using it to lap you financially. They're building empires while you're protecting pennies. Debt is a weapon. Learn to win.
You're comfortable right now, and that comfort is destroying your future. Let me tell you something that will either motivate you or offend you. Billionaires are addicted to discomfort. They crave it. They seek it out. They run toward the things that terrify everyone else. And that addiction to discomfort is exactly why they build empires while you build excuses. Comfort is the enemy of empire. Read that again. Comfort is the enemy of empire. The moment you prioritize stability over expansion, safety over growth, comfort over challenge, you've chosen mediocrity. You've signed a contract with average. And average doesn't build wealth. Average doesn't create legacy. Average doesn't change your life. Here's what comfort looks like. You wake up, go to the same job, do the same tasks, collect the same paycheck, go home, watch the same shows, and repeat. It's predictable. It's safe. It's easy. And it's exactly why you'll be in the same position 5 years from now. Comfort is a slow death. It doesn't kill you quickly, it kills you quietly. Day by day, year by year, it convinces you that where you are is where you should stay. It whispers that risk is dangerous, that change is scary, that what you have is good enough. And you believe it. Meanwhile, empire builders are taking calculated risks. They're launching ventures that might fail. They're investing money they can't guarantee they'll get back. They're working 16-hour days on projects that haven't paid them yet. They're uncomfortable, exhausted, uncertain, and alive. You're comfortable, stable, secure, and dying inside. Let me be clear. I'm not romanticizing suffering. I'm not telling you to be miserable for the sake of being miserable. I'm telling you that growth only happens outside your comfort zone. Always, without exception. If you're comfortable, you're not growing. If you're not growing, you're stagnant. And stagnation is just another word for slow decline. Billionaires understand this at a cellular level. They have a high tolerance for uncertainty and chaos. They sleep poorly during product launches. They risk public failure. They endure criticism, doubt, and fear. They choose the hard path because they know easy paths don't lead to extraordinary outcomes. Richard Branson is the perfect example. He started Virgin Airlines with zero airline experience. Zero. He risked everything he'd built in other industries to enter one of the most competitive, capital-intensive, failure-prone sectors in business. Why? Because comfort bored him. Because staying in his lane felt like death. Because building an empire required entering territories that terrified him. Most people won't even start a side hustle because it feels risky. Most people won't quit their job to pursue their vision because they need stability. Most people won't invest in themselves because they're afraid of wasting money. Most people choose the safe path and then wonder why their life never changes. The safe path guarantees you'll never be great. Let me say that differently. You cannot play it safe and win big. Those two things are mutually exclusive. Safety produces average results. Risk produces exceptional results, or exceptional lessons. Either way, you grow. Comfort kills ambition. Discomfort builds empires. That's not a motivational slogan, that's a fundamental truth about how success works. Right now, you're probably in a comfortable job. Maybe you even like it. Maybe it pays okay. Maybe your boss isn't terrible. Maybe the benefits are decent. And that comfort is the trap. Because as long as it's good enough, you'll never leave. You'll never risk. You'll never build. You'll stay exactly where you are until you retire or get replaced. That's the comfort trap. It's not about being in a bad situation. It's about being in a situation that's just good enough to keep you from pursuing greatness. You know what's uncomfortable? Starting a business with no guaranteed income. Investing your savings into an idea that might fail. Quitting your job to pursue your vision. Working for 2 years on something before it pays you $1. That's uncomfortable. That's terrifying. That's why most people never do it. And that's exactly why most people never build wealth. Here's the hard truth. You're going to be uncomfortable either way. You can be uncomfortable now while you're building something, or you can be uncomfortable later when you're 65 and realize you wasted your life playing it safe. Choose your discomfort. Billionaires choose discomfort early. They embrace the struggle in their 20s, 30s, and 40s so they can live in abundance for the rest of their lives. You're choosing comfort now, which guarantees discomfort later. Financial stress, regret, limitation, dependence. You think you're avoiding pain. You're actually just delaying it. Let me tell you what comfort really costs. It costs your potential. It costs your dreams. It costs the life you could have lived if you'd been willing to endure temporary discomfort for permanent freedom. You're trading your future for your present. You're trading empire for ease, and you're going to regret it. Comfort kills ambition. Discomfort builds empires. Say it out loud. Let it sink in. Think about every major achievement in your life. I guarantee it came from discomfort. Learning to walk was uncomfortable. You fell repeatedly. Learning to read was uncomfortable. It was frustrating and difficult. Getting your first job was uncomfortable. Interviews are terrifying. Every growth phase of your life was marked by discomfort. So why do you think building wealth would be any different? You've been conditioned to seek comfort. Society rewards it, your family encourages it, your friends normalize it. Get a stable job, don't take risks, play it safe, be grateful for what you have. That's the advice of people who settled, and they want you to settle too. Misery loves company. Mediocrity loves company. Comfort loves company. But empire builders walk alone. They make decisions nobody understands. They take risks people call crazy. They work while everyone else relaxes. They sacrifice while everyone else consumes. And years later, everyone asks, "How'd you do it?" The answer is always the same. They chose discomfort. Here's what discomfort looks like in practice. It's waking up at 5 a.m. when you don't have to, because you're building something. It's saying no to social events because you're focused on your goals. It's investing money into education, tools, and growth instead of entertainment. It's having difficult conversations. It's facing rejection. It's trying and failing and trying again. None of that is comfortable. All of it is necessary. You're probably thinking, I'll start when I'm more prepared. I'll start when I have more money. I'll start when the timing is better. That's comfort talking. That's your brain protecting you from discomfort by creating excuses disguised as logic. The timing will never be perfect. You'll never be fully prepared. There will never be a moment when starting feels comfortable. That moment doesn't exist. You either choose discomfort now or regret later. Those are your only options. Comfort is a trap designed to keep you mediocre. It's a cage that feels like safety. It's a prison that looks like stability. And you're locked inside it right now, telling yourself you're making the smart choice. You're not. You're making the safe choice. And safe doesn't build empires. Let me ask you a direct question. What would you attempt if you weren't afraid of being uncomfortable?
What business would you start? What career would you pursue? What investment would you make? What life would you build? Now ask yourself, why aren't you doing that right now? The answer is comfort. You're prioritizing feeling good over being great. You're choosing ease over excellence. You're picking the path of least resistance, and that path leads nowhere extraordinary. Billionaires don't have a higher pain tolerance. They have a different relationship with discomfort. They see it as the price of admission. They see it as confirmation they're on the right path. They see it as the signal that growth is happening. You see discomfort as a warning sign to retreat. They see it as a green light to accelerate. That's the difference. Comfort kills ambition. Discomfort builds empires. And every single day, you choose which side you're on. You're choosing right now. Are you going to close this audiobook and return to your comfortable life? Are you going to nod along, feel inspired for 20 minutes, and then do nothing? Are you going to stay in the job, the relationship, the city, the routine that feels safe but keeps you small? Or are you going to choose discomfort? Are you going to start the thing you've been afraid to start? Are you going to risk the money, the time, the reputation? Are you going to build something that terrifies you? Comfort is the enemy of empire, and you can't serve both. You've understood that comfort is your prison. Now let's talk about the resource that actually determines your wealth, and it's not what you think.
Chapter 6. Your network is your net worth, literally. You think success is about having the best idea. It's not. You think wealth is about working the hardest. It's not. You think breaking through is about talent, skill, or intelligence. It's not. Success is about access, and access comes from your network. Billionaires don't have smarter ideas than you. They don't work harder than the single parent juggling 3 jobs. They aren't more talented than the artist struggling to pay rent. What they have is better access. They know the right investors. They know the right advisors. They know the right partners who can turn a $10,000 idea into a $10 million reality. Your network is your net worth. Literally. Not metaphorically, literally. Let me break this down. If you're surrounded by broke people, you'll stay broke. Not because they're bad people, because they have broke habits, broke mindsets, and broke networks. They can't introduce you to opportunity because they don't have access to opportunity. They can't advise you on wealth because they've never built wealth. They can't open doors because they're standing outside the same doors you are. Your network either accelerates you or anchors you. Right now, look at the 5 people you spend the most time with. Look at their income. Look at their ambition. Look at their trajectory. That's your future. You are the average of the people around you. Not sometimes, not eventually, always. If your closest friends are comfortable being average, you'll be average. If your closest friends are building empires, you'll build an empire. It's not about copying them. It's about proximity to their standards, their energy, their expectations, and their connections. Billionaires curate their network like a portfolio. They're ruthless about it. They cut off people who drain energy. They distance themselves from negativity. They strategically build relationships with individuals who elevate them. That's not being fake. That's being intentional. You're being unintentional. You're hanging around people out of convenience, history, or obligation. You're loyal to friendships that aren't serving your growth. You're investing time in relationships that give you nothing but comfort and distraction. And that loyalty is costing you millions. Let me give you a real example. Mark Zuckerberg's early connection to Sean Parker, the founder of Napster, helped him scale Facebook and navigate Silicon Valley's elite investor circles. Sean Parker introduced him to Peter Thiel. Peter Thiel became Facebook's first major investor, putting in $500,000 when Facebook was just a college project. That single relationship and the network it unlocked was worth billions. Meanwhile, there are thousands of talented developers with brilliant ideas who remain completely unknown because they don't have access. They're not dumber than Zuckerberg. They're not less capable. They just don't know the right people. Access is everything. Talent without connection is wasted potential. You might have the next billion-dollar idea, but if you don't know anyone with capital, you'll never fund it. If you don't know anyone with industry experience, you'll make avoidable mistakes. If you don't know anyone who's already built what you're trying to build, you'll reinvent the wheel while others speed past you. Your network determines your ceiling. Your circle determines your circle. And right now, your circle is keeping you exactly where you are. Here's the brutal part. You know this is true. You know you need better connections, but you're not doing anything about it. You're not going to the events. You're not reaching out to people above your level. You're not putting yourself in rooms where opportunity lives. You're staying comfortable with the people you already know. That's the trap. Billionaires don't wait for networks to come to them. They go where the networks are. They attend conferences. They join masterminds. They invest in proximity. They spend $25,000 to be in a room with people worth $25 million because they know one conversation can change everything. You're spending $25 on drinks with friends who are in the same position as you, having the same conversations you had last year, going nowhere together. Stop hanging around people who normalize your limitations. Stop surrounding yourself with individuals who make your current goals look ambitious. Start getting into rooms where your biggest goals look small. That's how you level up. That's how you access opportunity. That's how you build wealth. Let me tell you something that might sting. The people in your life right now probably can't help you get where you want to go. They don't have the connections. They don't have the experience. They don't have the resources. And staying loyal to them out of guilt or nostalgia is noble, but it's not strategic. You don't have to cut everyone off, but you do need to expand your circle intentionally. You need to add people who are 5 steps ahead of you. You need to be the least successful person in the room sometimes. That's uncomfortable. That's humbling. That's necessary. Proximity to power is power. If you're always the smartest, richest, most ambitious person in your circle, you're in the wrong circle. You need to be challenged. You need to be stretched. You need to be around people who make you feel like you're behind, because that discomfort drives growth. Your network is your net worth, literally. Let me show you how this works practically. You want to start a business? If you know someone who's already built a successful business, you can avoid years of mistakes. They'll tell you what works, what doesn't, and where the landmines are. That advice alone is worth tens of thousands of dollars in saved time and lost capital. You want to raise investment? If you know someone who's connected to venture capitalists or angel investors, you get introduced. One warm introduction is worth 1,000 cold emails. Access shortens your timeline from years to months. You want to scale? If you know someone who's already scaled a business, they can introduce you to the right vendors, the right platforms, the right hiring strategies. You leapfrog trial and error. That's the power of network. That's why billionaires invest so heavily in relationships. They know that the right connection at the right time is worth more than any amount of hard work. You're working hard in isolation. They're working smart in collaboration, and that's why they're winning. Here's what you need to understand. People do business with people they know, like, and trust. If nobody knows you, you don't exist. If the right people don't know you, opportunity doesn't find you. You can be the most talented person in your field, but if you're invisible to the people who matter, your talent is irrelevant. Visibility is currency, access is currency, and your network determines both. Let me ask you a direct question. Who in your network can write a check to fund your idea? Who in your network can make an introduction that changes your career? Who in your network has built what you're trying to build? If the answer is nobody, you have a network problem, and a network problem is a wealth problem. You need to start building relationships with intentionality, not transactionally. Nobody likes that, but strategically. Go where successful people are. Provide value before you ask for it. Build genuine relationships based on mutual respect and shared vision. Billionaires don't just take from their network, they contribute to it. They connect people. They share resources. They add value to their circle, and their circle adds value back. It's reciprocal, not parasitic. You're probably thinking, how do I even get access to those people? They're not going to respond to my messages. You're right, they won't respond to desperate, self-serving messages, but they will respond to thoughtful, value-driven outreach. They will respond to people who've done their homework, who respect their time, and who offer something beyond, "Can I pick your brain?" You'd be surprised how many successful people are willing to help those who demonstrate initiative and respect. But you're not doing that. You're waiting for opportunity to knock on your door. You're waiting for success to find you. You're waiting for the right person to magically appear in your life. That's not how it works. Opportunity doesn't find you. You position yourself where opportunity lives. Your circle determines your ceiling. If you're surrounded by people who think $100,000 a year is making it, that's your ceiling. If you're surrounded by people who think $10 million is a starting point, that's your new floor. The standards around you become your standards. The expectations around you become your expectations. The possibilities around you become your possibilities. Right now, your network is limiting you. Your friendships are comfortable, but they're not profitable. Your relationships are familiar, but they're not strategic. Your circle is loyal, but it's not powerful. And until you change that, nothing else changes. Here's the hard truth. Leveling up your network means outgrowing some people. It means spending less time with people who drain you and more time with people who challenge you. It means saying no to invitations that don't serve your growth and yes to opportunities that stretch you. That's uncomfortable. That's lonely sometimes. That's necessary. Billionaires understand that not everyone gets to come on the journey. They understand that growth requires pruning relationships that no longer serve them. They understand that their network is an investment and some investments need to be cut. You're still holding on to everyone. You're still trying to bring everyone with you. And that loyalty is noble, but it's also what's keeping you stuck. Your network is your net worth. Literally, the people you know determine the opportunities you access. The doors you walk through depend on who's willing to open them for you. Right now, you're on the outside looking in. You're talented, ambitious, and capable, but invisible to the people who could change your life with one introduction, one investment, one opportunity. Start building your network like your financial future depends on it, because it does. You've learned that your network is your greatest asset. Now let's talk about the timeline that separates billionaires from everyone else.
Chapter 7. Think in decades, not days. You're thinking too small, not just in terms of goals, in terms of time. Poor people think in paychecks. Middle class thinks in years. Billionaires think in decades. And that difference in timeline changes everything about how do you build, how you invest, and how you make decisions. Your timeline determines your strategy. If you're thinking about next month's rent, you can't make investments that pay off in 5 years. If you're thinking about this quarter's results, you can't build something that dominates in 20 years. Your time horizon caps your potential. Right now, you're probably focused on immediate results. You want the business to work this year. You want the investment to pay off this quarter. You want the promotion now. You want wealth fast. And that desperation for speed is exactly why you'll never build anything that lasts. Billionaires play the infinite game. They're building legacies, not looking for quick wins. They think in decades, not days. And that difference in timeline changes everything about how you build, how you invest, and how you make decisions. Your timeline determines your strategy. Say that again. Your timeline determines your strategy. If you're thinking short-term, you make short-term decisions. You chase quick money. You avoid anything that doesn't pay immediately. You quit when results don't come fast. You pivot constantly because you're impatient. And you never build anything substantial. Because substantial things take time. If you're thinking long-term, everything changes. You can endure years of slow growth because you're playing for decades. You can handle losses because you know they're temporary. You can ignore critics because you're focused on outcomes they can't see yet. You can make investments that don't pay off for 5 years because you're not desperate for next month's rent. That's the difference. That's the edge. Warren Buffett is the king of long-term thinking. He bought Coca-Cola stock in 1988 and still holds it today, over 35 years later. That investment is now worth billions. Most investors panic sell after a bad month. Most people can't hold an investment for a bad year. Buffett holds through recessions, market crashes, and decades of volatility because he's not playing the short game. He's playing the infinite game, and the infinite game always wins. Think about it. Every overnight success took 10 years. Every sudden breakthrough was preceded by years of obscurity. Every billion-dollar company survived years of losses before dominance. The public only sees the result. They never see the decade of grinding that made it possible. You're expecting results tomorrow. Billionaires are building for 20 years from now. That's why you're frustrated and they're patient. That's why you quit and they persist. That's why you're broke and they're wealthy. Short-term pain, long-term empire. That's the mantra. That's the trade. You need to stop asking, what can I achieve this year, and start asking, what am I building over the next decade? That question changes your entire approach. It changes what you're willing to sacrifice. It changes what you're willing to endure. It changes what you invest in. If you're building for 10 years, you can survive 5 years of struggle. If you're building for next quarter, 5 months of struggle destroys you. Your timeline is your tolerance for difficulty. Let me tell you what thinking in decades looks like practically. You start a business knowing it won't be profitable for 2 years. You're okay with that because you're building systems, brand recognition, and customer loyalty that will pay off for decades. You're not chasing quick cash. You're building an asset. You invest in real estate knowing the property won't appreciate significantly for 5 to 7 years. You're okay with that because you're collecting rent, building equity, and positioning for long-term wealth. You're not flipping for quick profit, you're holding for generational wealth. You develop a skill knowing it won't make you money immediately. You're okay with that because mastery takes years, and mastery creates opportunities that mediocrity never sees. You're not learning for quick returns, you're learning for lifetime advantages. That's long-term thinking. That's how empires are built. But you're not doing this. You're jumping from opportunity to opportunity, looking for the thing that works immediately. You're quitting businesses after 6 months because they're not working. You're abandoning investments because they didn't double in a year. You're switching strategies every time something feels slow. You're a short-term thinker in a long-term game, and that's why you're losing. Here's the brutal reality. Everything worthwhile takes longer than you think. Building a successful business takes 5 to 10 years, not 6 months. Building real wealth takes decades, not years. Building a reputation takes a lifetime, not a quarter. If you're not willing to commit to the timeline, you're not serious about the outcome. Billionaires endure years of obscurity. They work on projects nobody believes in. They invest in visions nobody can see. They build while everyone else quits. And years later, when they're winning, everyone asks, how'd you get so lucky? It wasn't luck. It was timeline. They thought in decades while you thought in days. Let me ask you a question. What are you willing to work on for 5 years before seeing results? What are you willing to build that won't pay you for half a decade? What vision are you committed to even if nobody believes in it for years? If you can't answer that, you don't have a long-term vision. You have short-term wishes, and wishes don't build wealth. Patience compounds just like interest. The longer you hold an investment, the more it grows. The longer you build a business, the more valuable it becomes. The longer you develop expertise, the more opportunities you unlock. Time is your greatest multiplier, but only if you give it time to work. You're not giving it time. You're quitting too soon. You're pivoting too fast. You're expecting microwave results in a slow cooker world. Here's what long-term thinking allows. It allows you to ignore short-term noise. Market crashes? Temporary. Bad press? Temporary. Slow months? Temporary. When you're thinking in decades, short-term chaos doesn't shake you because you know it's irrelevant to your ultimate outcome. Short-term thinkers panic at every dip. They sell at the bottom. They quit during the slow season. They abandon ship when things get hard. And they spend their entire life starting over instead of finishing what they started. You've started and quit 10 things in the last 5 years. Imagine if you'd stuck with just one. Where would you be now? Probably significantly further than where you are. That's the cost of short-term thinking. You keep resetting to zero instead of compounding toward mastery. Billionaires commit. They pick a direction and grind for decades. They don't chase trends. They don't pivot at every obstacle. They stay the course even when it's hard, boring, or slow, because they know that consistency over decades beats intensity over months. You're intense for 3 months, then you quit. They're consistent for 30 years, then they dominate. Short-term pain, long-term empire. Let that sink in. Every decision you make is either serving your next paycheck or your next decade. Every choice is either immediate gratification or delayed greatness. You're choosing immediate gratification. You're choosing comfort now over empire later. You're choosing the easy path that leads to a hard life. Billionaires choose the hard path that leads to an easy life. They suffer early so they don't suffer forever. They delay gratification so they can live without limitation. They think in decades so they can win for lifetimes. Here's the truth that nobody wants to hear. By the time you see results from long-term thinking, most people have already quit. By the time your business becomes profitable, your competitors are gone. By the time your investments pay off, your peers have sold. By the time your skills make you irreplaceable, everyone else moved on. That's the advantage of long-term thinking. It filters out everyone who isn't serious. It rewards those who stay when everyone else leaves. It builds monopolies for those patient enough to wait. You want a shortcut. There isn't one. You want a hack? There isn't one. You want the results without the timeline. That's not how it works. Think in decades, not days. Plan for 2035, not next quarter. Build something that lasts, not something that's fast. Commit to the timeline, and the timeline rewards you with wealth others can't comprehend. Right now, someone is planting seeds they won't harvest for 10 years. Right now, someone is building infrastructure that won't pay off until 2030. Right now, someone is thinking in decades while you're worried about this week. And in 10 years, they'll be wealthy beyond measure while you're still hoping for next year to be different. Your timeline determines your strategy. Your patience determines your empire. Your willingness to think long-term determines whether you build wealth or just dream about it. Stop thinking in days. Start thinking in decades. That shift alone will change everything. You've learned to think beyond the immediate. Now, let's talk about the mental shift that keeps billionaires calm while everyone else panics.
Chapter 8. Detach from outcomes. Obsess over process. You're emotionally attached to results, and that attachment is sabotaging everything you're trying to build. Billionaires don't celebrate wins like you do. They don't mourn losses like you do. They don't get high on success or devastated by failure. They stay level. They stay focused. They stay detached. And that emotional detachment is a superpower you don't have. Here's what you do. You launch something, and if it succeeds, you're euphoric. You think you've figured it all out. You get cocky. You slack off. Then reality hits, and you crash. Or you launch something, and if it fails, you're devastated. You think you're not good enough. You get discouraged. You quit. Either way, you're being controlled by outcomes instead of controlling your process. That's amateur behavior. That's why you're inconsistent. That's why you can't sustain momentum. Billionaires don't emotionally attach to wins or losses. They focus on repeatable systems. If you're devastated by failure or euphoric from success, you're still thinking like an amateur. The wealthy optimize their process, testing, iterating, learning, and trust that results will follow. Control the process, not the outcome. Say that again. Control the process, not the outcome. You can't control whether your product goes viral. You can't control whether the market crashes. You can't control whether your competitor launches something better. You can't control timing, luck, or external circumstances. But you can control your daily execution.
You can control your systems. You can control your habits, your standards, and your focus. That's where billionaires live, in the controllable. You're living in the uncontrollable, wondering why you're always anxious, always disappointed, always unstable. Let me give you the perfect example. Steve Jobs. He was fired from Apple, the company he founded. Most people would have quit technology entirely after that humiliation. Most people would have been so emotionally destroyed they'd never recover. But Jobs didn't attach his identity to that one outcome. He started next. He bought Pixar. He kept building. And when Apple brought him back years later, he led the company to become the most valuable in history. He wasn't attached to one outcome. He was attached to the process of building great products. The firing was just feedback. The loss was just data. He adjusted and kept moving. That's detachment. That's resilience. That's how you build empires. You quit after one failure because you're emotionally fragile. You think failure means you're a failure. You think losing means you're a loser. You personalize outcomes instead of analyzing process. Billionaires see failure as information, not identity. They ask, "What did I learn?" Not, "Why does this always happen to me?" They treat losses like experiments, data points that inform the next move. They don't spiral into self-doubt. They don't take months to recover emotionally. They process, adjust, and execute again. You take failure personally. They take it analytically. That's the difference. Here's the hard truth. You will fail more than you succeed. That's not pessimism. That's probability. Most launches fail. Most investments underperform. Most ideas don't work. If you're emotionally attached to each outcome, you'll be on an emotional roller coaster that exhausts you into quitting. Detachment isn't about not caring. It's about caring more about the process than the result. It's about understanding that one failure doesn't define you and one success doesn't complete you. It's about building the system that produces results over time, not gambling on individual outcomes. Let me show you what this looks like practically. You launch a product. It flops. Instead of spiraling into, "I'm not good enough," you detach and analyze. What did the market tell me? What messaging didn't resonate? What can I adjust? You iterate. You launch again. You treat it like science, not self-worth. You pitch an investor. They say no. Instead of feeling rejected, you detach and extract value. What objections did they raise? How can I improve my pitch? Who else should I approach? You refine. You pitch again. You treat it like volume, not validation. That's detachment. That's process obsession. That's how you stay consistent regardless of outcomes. Billionaires wake up and run their system regardless of yesterday's results. They didn't let last month's loss stop this month's execution. They didn't let last year's win make them complacent this year. They show up with the same intensity, the same focus, the same commitment every single day. You're inconsistent because you're outcome dependent. When things go well, you relax. When things go poorly, you retreat. Your effort fluctuates based on external results. That's why you never build momentum. That's why you're always starting over. Control the process, not the outcome. You can control waking up at 5 a.m. You can control making 10 sales calls. You can control publishing content daily. You can control investing a percentage of your income. Those are process-based actions. Do them consistently, and outcomes become inevitable. But you're focused on outcomes. You're checking metrics obsessively. You're refreshing bank accounts, hoping for change. You're attached to results you can't control, ignoring the process you can. That's backwards. That's why you're anxious. That's why you're exhausted. Here's what emotional detachment allows. It allows you to fail without quitting. You can lose money on an investment and immediately look for the next opportunity. You can have a terrible sales month and show up with full energy the next month. You can launch 3 products that flop and launch a 4th with the same confidence. Detachment makes you unstoppable because nothing stops you. Failure doesn't paralyze you. Success doesn't distract you. You're locked into process, and process produces results over time. You don't have that. One bad week ruins your month. One failure makes you question everything. One rejection convinces you it's not meant to be. You're emotionally weak, and that weakness keeps you broke. Billionaires are emotionally strong, not because they don't feel, because they don't let feelings dictate actions. They feel disappointment and execute anyway. They feel fear and move forward anyway. They feel doubt and build anyway. You feel disappointment and quit. You feel fear and freeze. You feel doubt and retreat. Your emotions control you. Their process controls them. That's the difference between building wealth and dreaming about it. Let me tell you what obsessing over process looks like. It's tracking daily actions, not just monthly results. It's measuring inputs, calls made, content created, hours invested, not just outputs. It's refining your system constantly based on data, not emotion. You're obsessing over outcomes. Did I make money today? Did I get the client? Did the post go viral? Those are outcomes. You can't control them directly. What you can control is showing up, executing your system, and improving incrementally. Process compounds. One great day doesn't change your life. 1,000 consecutive days of executing your process changes everything. You're looking for the one big break. Billionaires are building 1,000 small wins that add up to empires. You're hoping for magic. They're trusting in math. You're gambling on outcomes. They're banking on process. Control the process, not the outcome. If you do the right things consistently, results take care of themselves. But you're not consistent. You're reactive. You do the work when you feel like it. You execute when you're motivated. You show up when conditions are perfect. Billionaires show up regardless. They execute on bad days. They work through low motivation. They trust the process even when they don't see immediate results, because they know that process is reliable. Outcomes are variable. You need to build a process you can run on autopilot. Wake up, execute, sleep, repeat. No emotion, no drama, no attachment. Just ruthless consistency, regardless of what happened yesterday. That's how you build wealth. Not through intensity, not through inspiration, through relentless, boring, unglamorous consistency. You're addicted to excitement. Billionaires are addicted to routine. You want every day to feel significant. They know most days are insignificant individually, but powerful collectively. You're chasing feelings. They're chasing systems. And systems always win. Here's the final truth. You can't control whether you succeed tomorrow.
Chapter 9. Money follows value, not effort. You're working hard, incredibly hard. You're exhausted. You're putting in long hours. You're sacrificing sleep, time with family, and personal health. And you're still broke. Here's why. You're not paid for how hard you work. You're paid for how much value you create. Let me say that again, because this might be the most important sentence in this entire audiobook. You're not paid for how hard you work. You're paid for how much value you create. That construction worker breaking his back in the sun 12 hours a day works harder than most CEOs. That nurse doing double shifts works harder than most entrepreneurs. That teacher grading papers at midnight works harder than most investors. But they're not paid like CEOs, entrepreneurs, or investors, because effort doesn't determine income. Value does. A surgeon earns more than a construction worker,
Not because surgery is harder, not because the surgeon works longer hours, but because surgery is more valuable and more scarce. The market rewards value creation and scarcity, not effort and exhaustion. This is the brutal truth that nobody wants to hear. Your effort is not special. Everyone works hard. Hard work is the baseline, not the differentiator. If you think working hard entitles you to wealth, you fundamentally misunderstand how the economy works. Money follows value, not effort. The market doesn't care how tired you are. It doesn't care how many hours you worked. It only cares about one thing. Did you solve a problem worth paying for? Billionaires obsess over creating massive value at scale. They're not trying to work harder than everyone else. They're trying to solve bigger problems for more people. They're asking, how can I create value for millions instead of hundreds? How can I solve problems people will pay premium prices for? You're asking, how can I work more hours? That's the wrong question. That's why you're stuck. Let me give you a perfect example. Mark Cuban became a billionaire by selling Broadcast.com for $5.7 billion. That company solved the problem of streaming media before anyone else figured it out. He didn't work a billion hours. He didn't outwork every other entrepreneur. He created billions in value by solving a problem the market desperately needed solved. The market rewards value creation, not effort. If you're working hard but creating low value, you'll stay poor. If you're working smart and creating massive value, you'll get rich. It's that simple. You're wearing exhaustion as a badge of honor. You're proud of how tired you are. You're bragging about your 16-hour days. And none of that matters if you're creating $10 an hour value. Stop glorifying effort. Start maximizing value. Here's what you need to understand. Value is determined by the market, not by you. You might think your work is valuable. You might believe you deserve more. But if the market doesn't value what you're offering, your opinion is irrelevant. You're a graphic designer charging $500 for a logo. You think that's fair because it took you 10 hours. But the market has thousands of designers offering the same thing for $100. Your effort doesn't matter. The market's perception of value matters. Unless you differentiate, unless you create something the market values more, you're competing on price in a race to the bottom. Billionaires don't compete on price. They compete on value. They create something so valuable that price becomes secondary. They solve problems so significant that people pay whatever they ask. Work smart, create value, get paid. That's the formula. Not work hard, demand payment, stay frustrated. You need to stop thinking about hours and start thinking about impact. How many people does your work affect? A local consultant affects 10 clients a year. A course creator affects 10,000 students a year. Same expertise, different scale. Different value, different income. You're thinking small because you're focused on effort, not impact. You're thinking, how much can I charge per hour? Billionaires are thinking, how can I create value for millions of people simultaneously? That's leverage, that's scale, that's wealth. Let me break down exactly what value means in practical terms. Value is solving problems people are willing to pay for. The bigger the problem, the more they'll pay. The more people who have that problem, the more you can earn. It's not complicated, it's just math. You solve a $10 problem for 10 people, you make $100. You solve a $10,000 problem for 1,000 people, you make $10 million. Same effort potentially, exponentially different value. But you're not thinking about value, you're thinking about time. I worked 40 hours this week. So what? What did you create? What problems did you solve? What impact did you make? If the answer is minimal, your paycheck will be minimal. The market doesn't care about your time. It cares about outcomes. You want to know why some people make $50,000 a year and others make $50 million? Value creation at scale. The 50,000 person is trading time for money, solving small problems for a few people. The 50 million person created a solution that serves millions. Effort was probably similar. Hours worked might even be similar. But value created? Exponentially different. Here's the shift you need to make. Stop asking, how hard am I working? Start asking, how much value am I creating? Stop measuring your day in hours. Start measuring it in impact. If you worked 10 hours today but created zero value, you wasted 10 hours. If you worked 2 hours today but created massive value, you had a phenomenal day. Time is irrelevant. Value is everything. Billionaires constantly ask themselves, how can I create 10 times more value with the same effort? They're not trying to work 10 times harder. They're trying to serve 10 times more people or solve 10 times bigger problems. You're trying to work harder. They're trying to work smarter. And that's why they're wealthy while you're exhausted. Let me give you another example. A personal trainer works one-on-one with clients. They can train maybe 5 clients a day, 50 clients a week. Their income is capped by their time. They're trading effort for money. Another trainer creates an online fitness program. They build it once, and 10,000 people buy it. Same expertise, exponentially different value delivery. One is trading time, the other is leveraging technology to scale value. Same skill, different model, different income. You need to stop thinking like the first trainer and start thinking like the second. How can you take what you know and deliver it to more people? How can you create value that scales beyond your personal time? That's the shift from effort-based income to value-based income. Money follows value, not effort. Let me show you what this looks like across different fields. A lawyer billing hours is trading time for money. A lawyer who creates a legal software platform that automates contracts is creating scalable value. One stays capped, the other gets rich. A real estate agent closing deals one at a time is trading effort for commissions. A real estate investor buying properties that generate passive income is creating value that compounds. One works forever, the other builds wealth. Same starting point, different approach to value creation, different financial outcomes. You're stuck in the first category across all of these examples. You're trading time, effort, and energy for immediate payment. You're not building anything that creates value beyond your active participation. And that's why you're tired and broke. Work smart, create value, get paid. Say it out loud. Internalize it. Let it change how you approach every single thing you do. Stop measuring success by how hard you worked. Start measuring success by how much value you created. Stop bragging about long hours. Start focusing on high impact. The market doesn't reward effort. It rewards solutions. It rewards innovation. It rewards value at scale. And until you understand that, you'll keep working yourself to death for mediocre results. Here's the final piece. Value creation requires solving real problems. Not problems you think exist, not problems that are convenient for you to solve, real problems that people are actively experiencing and willing to pay to eliminate. You're creating solutions looking for problems. Billionaires identify problems desperate for solutions. They study market pain points. They understand what keeps people up at night. They build solutions people can't live without. You're building what you want to build, hoping someone will buy it. They're building what the market is already begging for. That's the difference. Money follows value, not effort. Stop working harder, start creating more value. Stop trading time, start building leverage. Stop focusing on hours, start focusing on impact. That shift will change your income more than any amount of additional effort ever could. Right now, someone is creating a product that will serve 1 million people. Right now, someone is solving a problem so valuable, the market will pay them millions. Right now, someone is focused on value while you're focused on effort. And in 5 years, they'll be wealthy beyond measure while you're still exhausted and underpaid. The choice is yours. Work harder for the same results or work smarter to create exponentially more value. Effort won't make you rich. Value creation will. You've learned that value, not effort, determines wealth. Now let's talk about the final transformation required to actually handle the wealth you're trying to build.
Chapter 10. Wealth is a responsibility, not a fantasy. You fantasize about being rich. You dream about the cars, the houses, the freedom, the lifestyle. You imagine what you'd do with $1 million. You think wealth would solve all your problems. But here's the truth you're not ready to hear. Most people romanticize wealth, but they wouldn't handle the responsibility if they had it. Wealth is not a fantasy. Wealth is a responsibility. And if you can't handle responsibility, you can't handle wealth. Let me be brutally clear. Billionaires don't just have money. They manage empires. They oversee thousands of employees. They handle complex investments. They navigate public scrutiny. They make relentless decisions with millions of dollars on the line. They deal with lawsuits, competitors, market shifts, and constant pressure. That's not a vacation. That's not passive income. That's active stewardship of massive responsibility. And most people, maybe including you, would crumble under that weight. You can't even manage your current finances responsibly. You can't stick to a budget. You can't save consistently. You can't make disciplined investment decisions. You can't delay gratification. And you think you're ready for $10 million? You're not. The money would expose every weakness you have. It would amplify every character flaw. It would reveal every lack of discipline. If you can't manage $10,000 responsibly, you're not ready for $10 million. Let me say that again. If you can't manage $10,000 responsibly, you're not ready for $10 million. Wealth doesn't fix broken people, it exposes them. It magnifies who you already are. If you're undisciplined with $1,000, you'll be undisciplined with $1 million. If you're impulsive with small decisions, you'll be reckless with big ones. If you can't handle criticism now, you'll be destroyed by public scrutiny. The money doesn't change you, it reveals you. Let me give you the perfect example. Lottery winners. They go from zero to millions overnight. And statistically, most of them are broke within 5 years. They lose it all, not because they were unlucky, because they gained money without gaining the mindset. They couldn't handle the responsibility. They couldn't manage the pressure. They couldn't make the decisions. They couldn't resist the temptation. They had the money, but not the mental infrastructure to steward it. And that's exactly what would happen to you right now if you suddenly became wealthy. You'd blow it. You'd waste it. You'd lose it. Because you don't have the discipline, the knowledge, or the emotional maturity required to handle wealth. Wealth requires discipline. You can't spend impulsively. You can't make emotional decisions. You can't trust the wrong people. You can't neglect due diligence. Every decision matters. Every relationship has stakes. Every investment could multiply or disappear. That's pressure. That's responsibility. And if you think that sounds stressful, you're proving my point. You're not ready. Billionaires who lose everything, and some have, rebuild quickly. Donald Trump went bankrupt multiple times and came back. Robert Kiyosaki lost millions and rebuilt. They didn't stay down because they didn't just have money, they had the mindset. They had the mental infrastructure, the discipline, the knowledge, the emotional resilience, the decision-making frameworks, the ability to handle pressure, the capacity for responsibility. You don't have that yet. And that's okay, but you need to start building it now. Because becoming a billionaire isn't about getting lucky with money. It's about transforming your psychology, habits, and capacity for responsibility. Wealth is earned through mindset, kept through discipline. Say that again. Wealth is earned through mindset, kept through discipline. You can inherit money. You can win money. You can stumble into money. But you can't keep it without the character to manage it. Without discipline, money disappears. Without knowledge, investments fail. Without emotional control, decisions destroy you. That's why most people who get rich quick end up broke. They skipped the character development. They bypassed the discipline building. They avoided the lessons that make wealth sustainable. You're probably thinking, just give me the money and I'll figure it out. No, you won't. You'll do exactly what every unprepared person does. Spend it on liabilities, trust the wrong advisors, make emotional decisions, and watch it evaporate. I'm not being cruel, I'm being honest. And if you can't hear this truth now, you'll learn it the hard way later when you lose everything. Here's what wealth actually requires. You need financial literacy. You need to understand taxes, investments, legal structures, risk management, and asset protection. If you don't know these things, people will take advantage of you. Advisors will steal from you. Investments will fail, and you'll have no idea what happened. You need emotional maturity. You need to handle stress without breaking. You need to make decisions under pressure. You need to deal with jealousy, criticism, and betrayal without spiraling. Wealth attracts problems. If you're emotionally weak, those problems will destroy you. You need decision-making frameworks. Every day you'll face decisions worth tens of thousands or millions of dollars. Who do you hire? Who do you fire? What do you invest in? What do you divest from? Who do you trust? Who do you cut off? If you don't have systems for making these decisions, you'll make terrible ones. You need discipline. You need to say no constantly. No to bad opportunities. No to toxic people. No to impulsive spending. No to distractions. No to temptation. Wealth tests your discipline every single day. If you fail those tests, wealth disappears. Most people can't do this. Most people want the benefits without the responsibility. They want the mansion without managing the staff. They want the investments without learning the markets. They want the freedom without the discipline. That's fantasy, not reality. Billionaires accept that wealth comes with responsibility. They accept the pressure. They accept the scrutiny. They accept the decisions. They accept that every move they make affects dozens, hundreds, or thousands of people. They carry that weight because they've built the capacity for it. You haven't built that capacity yet. You're still thinking about what you'll buy. You're still fantasizing about what you'll do when you're rich. You're not thinking about what you'll manage, what you'll protect, what you'll be responsible for. That's the mindset gap. Let me be specific about what responsibility looks like. You'll be responsible for employees and their families. Your decisions affect whether they can pay their rent, feed their kids, or keep their jobs. That's pressure. That's responsibility. You'll be responsible for investors' capital. People will trust you with their money. If you fail, they lose. If you succeed, they win. That's accountability. You'll be responsible for your reputation. Everything you say and do will be scrutinized. One mistake can be magnified across media. One bad decision can define you publicly. That's exposure. You'll be responsible for continuous growth. Markets change. Competitors emerge. Technology evolves. You can't rest. You can't coast. You must adapt constantly or become irrelevant. That's relentless. That's what wealth actually is. Not a fantasy of leisure, a reality of responsibility. And if that sounds overwhelming, good. It should. Because wealth isn't for everyone. It's not for the unprepared. It's not for the undisciplined. It's not for the emotionally immature. It's for those who've built the capacity to handle it. So here's the question. Are you building that capacity right now? Are you developing financial literacy? Are you strengthening emotional resilience? Are you practicing discipline with the money you currently have? Are you making better decisions with $1,000 so you'll be ready for $1 million? Or are you just dreaming? Most people are just dreaming. They want the outcome without the transformation. They want the wealth without the work. They want the responsibility-free version that doesn't exist. And that's exactly why they'll never be wealthy. Wealth is earned through mindset, kept through discipline. Becoming a billionaire isn't about getting lucky, it's about becoming the person capable of handling that level of responsibility. Right now, you're not that person, but you could be, if you're willing to do the internal work, if you're willing to develop the discipline,
if you're willing to build the knowledge, if you're willing to accept that wealth is not a destination, it's a responsibility you carry every single day. That's the final lesson. That's the final transformation. That's what separates those who become wealthy from those who stay broke while fantasizing about wealth. The fantasy is easy. The responsibility is hard. And only those who choose the hard path get the reward. You've spent this entire audiobook learning how billionaires think. You've learned that money is a game with rules. You've learned that
Closing. Here's the truth. Billionaires don't have a secret formula you don't know about. They just think differently. They see money as a game, not survival. They reject scarcity and embrace abundance. They build systems that work without them. They weaponize debt. They live in discomfort. They curate powerful networks. They think in decades. They detach from outcomes and obsess over process. They create massive value. And they accept the responsibility that wealth demands. You've just learned how they think. Now the question is, will you adopt it? Or will you close this audiobook and go back to thinking like everyone else? The choice is yours, but understand this. Every day you delay is a day someone else is building the empire you're dreaming about. Stop dreaming. Start thinking like a billionaire. Start today.